So, hey, so I brought you all the way out here. I gotta tell you something. We came all the way out here. I gotta tell you something. Okay, so we gotta go up in the woods. Okay. Check it out. We're up here at Moneybrook Falls. Over here. We'll go up to the trail over here. I guess over here. Where is it? Oh, it's over there. Yeah, this is a nice spot. So this is in the Pittsfield State Forest. I had to tell you something, so I had to bring you out here. Okay, so just be cool for a second. Okay? Just be cool. It's kind of a big deal. It's a pretty big deal. Do I like make stuff up? Do I pretend that things aren't a big deal when like they are? Do I pretend things aren't a big deal when they are? That they aren't when they are. No, I don't really have a tendency to do that. Although I get like ridiculously like kind of like popped up by things. So this is the Hanwi circuit. This goes up to Moneybrook though, somewhere up here. So I'm gonna try to find a nice spot. Yeah, so it would only make sense that I'd, have to be up on a hiking trail to explain this. Because this whole channel is about hiking videos, hiking around outside, gear. I think a lot of my videos were about gear. So I guess I'll sort of get started just like, so I started making these videos when I started hiking on the Appalachian Trail, where actually it was, just to backtrack a bit. So we go back to 2014 and so 2012, 2013, I was working overseas in China as a English teacher. Not that I'd prepared that, although I have a very good understanding of linguistics, but I came into that because I had left the practice of law. I was I'm still a licensed attorney, but I left the practice of law in large part because I got involved with a group of not very nice people. That's a story for another time. But anyway, my mother got diagnosed with cancer in 2013, and I sort of moved back in and took care of her and helped her out while she was getting chemotherapy. And I needed something to do. So she had gotten through the chemo and I needed something to do because I wasn't quite ready to go back to work. And so I started hiking on the Appalachian Trail in June of 2014 because my mom was really sick with cancer. And while I was hiking, I was like, well, I gotta take pictures. I love photography and stuff like that. So I got this, and I had to prepare to go hiking on the Appalachian Trail. I had watched all these videos, which were on YouTube. And so anyway, I thought I was gonna get somewhere else, but I think I'm just gonna go. No, I know how to get there. I got a couple more. It's not too buggy. So anyway, back in 2014, I started hiking, started making these videos. I had never really thought about like making a YouTube channel. YouTube and like publishing, like self-publishing video material or documentary material. I think it wasn't something I'd really ever considered. I think in my past though, I've always enjoyed nonfiction and like documentaries and getting insight into things. So I kind of wanted to do something like that at different points in my life. I had a background like studying historical studies and historiography and stuff like that. So I've had an interest in like presenting something that serves the purpose of giving insight into, how things come to be in some way. It's like a historical study, or a sociological study of something that I know about, something that I think is important for other people to know about. So I've kind of And I've had an interest in like oral history podcasts and stuff like that, but I'm not a fanatic of it. So anyway, in 2014, when I started making these videos, it was ostensibly so my nieces and nephews, my sister has 4 kids, so my nieces and nephews, my 4 nieces and nephews could like see what I was doing hiking. And it was one of those things when I started hiking, I never thought I'd really finish. But anyway, so when I started doing these, and it's not like these are really widely received. I think I've had at the most like 300 subscribers. I have a couple videos, gear videos, that must have gotten into YouTube's algorithm, and those have been viewed a lot more. But that follows because when I was getting ready to thru hike, I watched tons of videos, YouTube videos, and that sort of got me started doing it. And then, so I did the Appalachian Trail. I went over to Europe after my mom passed away in 2015 and did a Camino Santiago in Spain and Portugal, and then did the Pacific Crest Trail. And then I did some volunteer work. I got involved with a group that did volunteer work in Nepal after they had an earthquake there in 2015. So I was there in 2016. And I just kept this thing of just making these little videos. And I enjoy doing it. People seem to like watching them. There are some people who really like get into watching a journey, I guess. So, yeah, so I brought you out here. I think we're kind of far enough off now. I don't know if anybody's behind me. I don't see anybody. I don't think anybody's up here. We just gotta be sure that we don't have any people. We gotta be very careful. Nobody knows. All right. So I guess like the thing that I wanted to that I brought you all the way out here is, so I'm autistic and have autism, and I didn't really come to an understanding of that until 2019. So I think that there's a perception of me as someone who like understood that, or, had a really good understanding of these things, and I didn't. And this is where, like, I think in the video I just posted, which was like an update, I heard something moving in them. Something big moving, but no, it's a bird. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I think the reason why it's significant is like, I did all these videos, without any sort of self-awareness and without a lot of guile. I mean, I guess if anything, I try to look cool, but that's certainly relative and subjective, to the fact that a fool like me probably can't ever really be that cool. But I don't know, sometimes I'm kind of cool. Maybe I think I am, but that's sort of a function of kind of not being cool. If you always think you're cool, then anyway. But yeah, so like these videos that I've done were created by somebody who has an atypical neurology. So this channel easily could devolve or change into that, and it would be a channel about autism, but it's not really that either. I'm still trying to frame this because it's like, I think it's important to do. And it's hard to really, so for somebody who hasn't lived the life that I've lived, I just suggest to you that I have lived a life that's different than typical people. And like having come around to this diagnosis and an understanding that I have autism at a much later stage in life, there's a lot of things that I didn't fully appreciate. Perhaps most significant among those is that other people didn't experience the same things in life that I did. And again, this isn't like a survivor story of autism, but I just wanted to mention it because I think it's significant, and I think it's something important to keep in mind. I'm still figuring out what to do with it in terms of like this channel or creating content. So just to put the autism diagnosis in perspective. So I'm 49 now. It's 2022. And I'm 49 now. Going back to 2019, I was working for the school district here in Western Massachusetts, working in special education. And I got bounced around in that. I started out doing academic work, but I got bounced around to kind of not particularly desirous jobs, but I didn't really complain a lot because by my reckoning, I was just there to help. And I didn't anticipate that I was actually going to be working there for that long. But the way it worked out, I got moved around a bunch of times, had the ups and downs, and was working with autistic folks, teenagers. So this was like teenagers, people who were moving out of the school district, and this is a life skills program. And I started to see that a lot of the characteristics of these kids were things that I did. And a lot of things started to make sense to me. So as a young kid, like I had speech therapy when I was like in kindergarten, first grade. And I had a lot of other things that I would not describe as particularly pleasant happen to me. So I think the thing about having the type of autism I have, it's like being in a Charles Dickens novel. That's the best way I can explain it. It's like the highs and the lows. There's all sorts of crazy conspiracies that are that are real, and some that aren't. There's like in many ways, I'm extremely fortunate in a lot of ways. And then it's like, what are you complaining about? Well, the stuff I complain about is like, I'm not going to do it on this channel. Like, this isn't my personal life story channel. But it is. So now it's like Jonathan Bent, the dude with atypical neurology. It's just like, son. And he's fucking weird. And I don't know, all sorts of crazy antics happen. So that's, I think, what I might do. So I am going to do another hike. I'm doing another, yeah, definitely. I'm going to do end to end, baby. All right, we're going to do another through hike. But I think what I might do is just like, maybe script them a bit. Like, not heavily script them, but like practice some of these stories. That's the thing about hiking. It's like these stories, these things that happen, and then you've got a story, and then you can kind of tell it. And then the thing is, so with storytelling, a lot of it's like context, like where you can tell it. You can't tell that story now. You can only tell that story in this situation, things like that. Like some stories are, you can only tell that story before dinner. You can't tell that story after dinner. Like there's things like that. So what I'm going to try to do is like collect some of the stories and maybe just do background. Cause some of it, cause I do have, atypical neurology. And so the trail that I hike on, what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing, what I fall into in my mind when I'm hiking, I don't know that that's the same as what other people fall into, and it's not like it's crazy. It's not like I'm hallucinating things, but I put things into a different context, sort of, philosophically, ideationally, than I think other people. Like one of the things I got into is like what a pilgrimage is, and how in Europe there was that was like the high entertainment was going on a pilgrimage. There wasn't that much else to do. You could go look at the bones of the saint, the 200 miles away. That's about it. That's about all we got to do. It's very funny. Like the very first English book, the very first English travelogue or book about travel in the English language was written by a fellow named Edward the Merry in the Middle Ages. And it's basically a drinking guide to northern France. So his idea of a good pilgrimage was knowing where to get all of the good drinks when you went through the countryside, which inns and taverns to go to. So, Yeah, so this is like a different update video. And I'm putting it up here because I think it's important. Late diagnosis Asperger's is a real thing. And there are a lot more people with the condition that I have that don't really have a full awareness of it than there are people who, than you'd think. Sorry. I just found a book recently about this. So yeah, I mean, just a little bit about that, about late diagnosis Asperger's. So going back through my life, I never understood Asperger's syndrome as something that applied to me. When I was younger, when I learned about Asperger's, and I have a college education and stuff like that, so I learned about Asperger's as a condition where people lose all interest in meeting anyone in the outside world, don't want to connect with anybody, close down. And this was my understanding of autism, was very flawed, not as a set of like neurological conditions, but as more of characterized by people who just have no interest in other people. So I've in my life made great efforts to meet people, and have wanted the benefit of company and socialization, and have had some trouble in that regard. But again, that's a story. That might be another channel. But it's when you get around to understanding it, it's like I didn't understand it as Asperger's. And that's largely because the whole definition of some of these disorders has evolved since I first learned of this when I was like 20. And yeah. Anyway, so I guess that's where we're at with that. Oh, check it out. We came over here, we were walking around, we came to this. It's like somebody was out here trying to make a little place to hide from the world over here, doesn't look particularly inviting as a place to spend the night. But anyway, yeah, late diagnosis Asperger's syndrome, it's a thing. Yeah. So